Hey everybody, Simmons says here, another of my mini podcasts, and this one's called Where Ideas Come From. It's a series now I'm going to do. Many writers, especially emerging and struggling ones, often find themselves struggling to come up with the next great idea, okay? Or any idea for that matter, and you know what I'm talking about. I know I certainly have had I've had to bang my head against the wall on occasions because it's funny. It actually started more in my early days. I was full of ideas then, and that was primarily because I was reading a lot. I was watching a lot of television. I was watching a lot of films. I was also much younger. I was a sort of my middle teens. I'd been watching stuff since I was even younger, but in the middle teens is when I started sort of dabbling in creative writing and that sort of thing. So I had a lot of television and films and radio to pull from, and even I even went to the library, a few books. So there was always these story ideas that I wanted to create my version of, right? And then there were actually story ideas I came up with that were my own, right? I just wanted to maybe take a theme that I'd seen or an episode of something that I'd seen where the character went through a particular kind of backdrop, and I was going, "Oh, if I was in that kind of backdrop, facing some sort of certain adventure or danger, what would I do? How would it go for me?" So sometimes I'd imagine how it would go, with me as the hero, sometimes a sidekick. And then as I wrote more and more stories, I began to find it easier to envision the other characters, to put more time and conscious awareness as to the depths of the other characters, their personalities and everything, and how they affected the story, and how my lead character, which again sometimes was me in my head, would interact with them. But definitely there was a time when I struggled to come up with an idea, an idea for that next story or that next make-believe sort of scenario that I wanted to explore. And, I would struggle with this, and I would sometimes give up and not do anything for days or weeks or even months in occasions. And then sometimes there were times when it was like I was struggling to find something original, something new, something that didn't seem like something I'd done before, or it didn't seem like something I'd seen before, and that was difficult. In those early days, you're particularly scared because you haven't had enough experience of, people reading your work or hearing your work and liking it, or maybe not liking it. You didn't know how to deal with that. You weren't sure. So over the next 4 or 5 episodes, I'm going to try and touch on the different places you can go to come up with ideas for plots and stories, for books and television and feature films and anything else, right? So again, with this episode being focused on personal recall. Now that's pretty obvious what that means. I mean, it's the thing that you remember. Yeah, that's pretty basic. It's your day-to-day experiences, or something that happened, maybe a few weeks ago or a year ago, or maybe even further back when you were a child. Now, when people tend to look back on those things, they try and remember the bigger incidents, the monumental moments when something really, really earth-shattering occurred. But, that's not always necessary. I mean, sometimes it's not even necessary, period, right? There's so many areas of your life and your memory that you could explore in storytelling. I mean, remember this, when you were a child, when you were much younger, let's put it that way, everything was new. I mean, everything. I mean, how you reacted to the discovery of relationships with your family and friends, how you dealt with where you lived, going to school, your feelings, as they began to develop and mature, or made an attempt to mature at least. These were all small events in the great map of your life, but they were impactful events. And easily how you felt, or something you saw, or someone you met or knew at that time, could be a springboard to a story. If not the main character, a supporting character. Now let me emphasize here that you can write those little stories, those little moments, those little slice of life moments. They seem so personal and individual and maybe unexciting until someone else reads that or sees it if you've shot it as a film or a video, and they say, "Oh yeah, I remember when that happened to me, or I remember hearing my uncle say this, or my grandparents say that, or my sister such and such." Right? Suddenly, you find that your very personal experience has a very universal theme and appeal. So, the next time that you're pondering, where that great next short story or microfiction or novel or play or teleplay or song or poem is going to come from, think back on what you've seen, how you felt, where you've been, who you knew or know. Think on that and see what ideas come to mind. And one more thing. This is a basic rule for any plot seeking or story exploration. So here's the rule. Don't judge the first idea that you get. Just take notes, jot it down, and that's it.